All right, hello and welcome everybody. I think we are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to another One Firm webinar. I am very, very happy to be here today with Jenny Williamson, the Head of Business Development at FB Rice. We're going to get started in a couple minutes. We're just going to let everybody else come in, give everybody about 2 or 3 more minutes before we get started. And then we're going to go ahead and kick off. I'm going to introduce Jenny and then ask if she can introduce herself. But before we do, very quickly, Jenny, how are you? Waiting in the wings to get started with the big webinar?
I'm great. Thank you, Ben. And it's a good afternoon, I think, to everyone, though it's good morning here in Australia. Certainly.
It's a somewhat cloudy day here in the eastern part of the United States. I know that Emma will be joining us. So Emma, if you could just unmute yourself. Emma is our MC for this webinar. She's going to be monitoring the chat, and she's based in British Columbia, all the way on the west side of the North Americas. Emma, how are you today?
I am good, thank you. Just, again, the voice from the great beyond, if you are tuning in on another webinar.
The voice from the mountains, per usual, British Columbia. Yeah, it's how's the weather today out there, Emma? Let's do some weather talk. What's the situation?
It is very sunny today, so I'm looking forward to getting out there with the dog later and enjoying that because it's been rainy, Raincouver.
Raincouver, that's what they call it. Okay, well, we're excited to get started today. You are here for maximizing your email marketing, specifically with Jenny Williamson, the Head of Business Development at FB Rice. We're going to be introducing Jenny in a couple minutes. I'm very excited to speak with Jenny all around email marketing. I'm going to give her bio to start, and then we're going to go about 35 minutes. So let's let everybody come in for another minute or so, and then we're going to go get started here. But again, you are in the right place, maximizing email marketing with Jenny Williamson, the Head of Business Development at FB Rice. My name is Ben Shirvoga. I'm the Chief Growth Officer here at Nexl. If you've been here to one of the One Firm webinar series, we're super excited to have you back for another great series. We've done a series on social media marketing with a variety of different hosts. We've done a introduction this quarter to the marketing trends of 2023 with Phil Thurner, and we've done a variety of other. I'm actually starting to blank on some of the ones that we did earlier in 2022. Emma's been there for the entire time, but we're very excited for this one today, maximizing email marketing with Jenny Williamson, one last time, Head of Business Development Marketing. So why don't we go ahead and get started? Emma, does it sound good to go ahead and get started? What do you think? Go ahead and kick off.
Yep.
Let everybody else come in as they may.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so one last time, we are here today for a nice 35-minute webinar with Jenny Williamson, the Head of Business Development Marketing at FB Rice. We're going to be talking about maximizing email marketing and specifically how FB Rice and Jenny used Nexl to start getting more ROI out of their email marketing. I'm going to go ahead and introduce very briefly Jenny. Jenny is an experienced B2B service marketing and business development professional focused on growing businesses where building of strong relationships are key. So that's basically professional services, especially law firms. Jenny has had a wonderful career, including stints at FB Rice, AECOM, Grant Thornton, and a few others. But Jenny, welcome to the One Firm webinar. We're excited to have you.
Thanks very much, Ben. I'm really excited to be here and share our story.
You as well. So why don't we kick off maybe a little bit about FB Rice, the firm, and a little bit about your role there and the position. I know you've been there for the last 2.5 years, give or take. Yeah, why don't you paint the picture for us? What's the day-to-day like for the Head of Business Development at FB Rice?
Yeah, sure. So FB Rice is an Australian IP firm. So we have patent attorneys and trademark attorneys. That's the majority of our professional services. We Australia's largest in terms of the number of attorneys that we have, and we're independent, so we're still sort of under a partnership structure. We're not listed like many of the other firms in Australia. We have great client service record with some independent research that's been done over the last 6-8 years or so. And, you know, I'm really focused on the client service experience. Yes, I love to grow businesses. I've always been in B2B roles. I love the relationship aspect of the service type industry, and working with the really smart people that are, whether it's attorneys, so they're scientists and engineers, or lawyers or accountants. That's where I've spent most of my time, and I find it really challenging and an exciting place to be. And there's so much opportunity to improve the way that we do our client relationships. Yeah. And I'm really focused on client service. That's my thing. So, you know, making sure that we are looking at internal and external clients and providing the best service possible so that we can grow the business.
Yeah, something that caught my ear right now is internal and external clients. I think that's really interesting. So you make a differentiation, which you know, you're a seasoned pro, so you know that internal marketing is just as important, and internal communications are just as important as external communications. Do you want to say maybe a little bit about how you're thinking about client experience in 2023? What does that mean? You know, especially whenever you think of maybe the current economy, the needs of client experience today. Yeah, how do you think about it today? What's some mantras or some keystones that you always come back to that you think are important?
I think listening is an extremely important part of that, and really understanding the client's position and their other challenges. So it's just not going in with your legal head on, or your accounting head on, or your IP, and going in and fixing the problem that they're presenting, but understanding the client, all of their challenges that they're facing, and how you can help them and make their life easier by working on that one component. But you can only do that if you understand the whole picture. And so we need our professionals to move outside of just their area of technical expertise and really understand and listen to clients and help fill their greater needs, I guess.
Yeah, that's totally. Maybe we'll have you on, or maybe we should have you on the podcast about good listening, good listening for professional services. I would love to dig into that.
I'd love that.
Yes, let's do it. Good listening is probably just a good skill in general. So I've been told by most of the very smart people in my life, including my very beautiful wife. So listening is the key to lots of things, from what I've been told. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and get started with the actual webinar, the substantive. Thanks so much for the background, Jenny. We're going to be going into 3 topics today under this canopy of client experience, what Jenny is really focused on. But we're gonna dive a little bit into email marketing, because I think Jenny has a really good, interesting perspective on how important email is to the client experience, and even to events, of which client experience might be a subset. So we're going to tie together email and why it's so important for client experience, or how it's part of client experience event. Then we're going to go into some of the challenges to a good email experience. And then finally, we're going to go into how FB Rice redesigned their email experience, or just some of the wins that they saw by rethinking that email experience. So why don't we, to set the stage, I always show this stage. I think it's relevant today. There's been an analysis, or an analysis came back about basically looking back at how law firms recovered in the previous large recession. Now, it's nobody's news that, you know, we're entering a soft business environment. Some things are going to be more affected than others, but it's always relevant to kind of look back at history and say, you know, where are we, and what happened previously at previous soft or recessionary periods. And since 2008, what you have seen, and this is particularly around American law firms specifically, and maybe the data is a little bit different in other places of the world, but what was really found was that there was like a tale of 2 different types of law firms. some law firms since 2008 have done incredibly well and growing at incredible rates, and others weren't able. And at Nexl, we always believe that what is the real difference between those firms that have continued to grow is one, delivering great client experience and the continue to deliver great client experience, but also changing and being adaptable. And so I think that's kind of like the mantra that we always go to. Those who the old way and continues to sort of stick with what's tried and true, I think it's getting harder and harder to do what's always kind of worked. So it's just a graph that kind of shows in numerical terms that that there is a difference, and change and doing new things can really lead to exceptional results. So we just like to start that off. So let's dig in a little bit into and Jenny, I actually don't know. Do you have any comments about this? Does this strike you at all as interesting? Any takeaways in terms of a graph like this when you take a look at it in your experience?
Look, I think it's pretty similar here in Australia as well. I think that kind of flow is very similar to what we have experienced, and I think going forward it will be very similar as well as to what. So I think for those that are looking at international markets, most of those big markets, there will be pockets that will be different, and depending on what kind of industries they serve. But in terms of professional services, I think most international markets and the big ones will be doing, the main ones will be doing that. That's similar to what you've got there.
Totally. Okay, so let's double click today on email, and the first prompt, not a question, but a prompt to have a conversation really about is why is email important to client experience and events, and how do you think about email and the email marketing experience as kind of driving client experience?
It's just another channel that we use, I guess. So if you're looking at everything that you're using and looking at all of your messages, the email experience has to match that. And putting my client experience hat on, that's not just the ones that get pumped out by the marketing and BD teams. It's the personal emails that
right.
that our clients will receive as well, directly the one-on-one emails. But in terms of the overall marketing and BD emails, it's important because it can give them valuable information no matter where they are on that life cycle, on the buyer's life cycle. And if you can segment it so you can provide more direct information at the different stages of the life cycle, that works even better. So it's a way of getting information, but we need to again make sure we're listening to our clients and we are giving them information that is of value to them, and it must be directed from what the client's needs are, not what the lawyers are interested in writing about or think that that's what people would be interested in, or this is really, this is where I'm going to go and set up my career kind of thing. It's what are the clients interested in? What are they reading? And we can do that through a whole heap of ways. Nexl can help implement that, but the research can come from a lot of other different areas as well in making sure that we've got the right content.
Absolutely. So why don't we actually, you said something so interesting, and maybe people on the call here totally understand this, but it's so important, it's so fundamental, which is, you said two really important things. One is understanding the client buying experience, and that a lot has to go with listening, but more generally just their experience in interacting with professional service firms. And then the second thing that was very important is, in contrast to what the lawyers want to write or what they think is interesting or what they would, want to build their, just speak to, or their professionalism. This is a very tense subject. And could you talk a little bit about, how do you describe the client experience? Maybe just a refresher on the buying experience. Maybe you can just walk us through that. And then specifically, can you say just a little bit about, how do you approach introducing this idea of, well, we have to take them on a journey, and there is a journey. That's very important, that people go through stages. I think that this is sometimes so fundamental, but still sometimes so lost today, especially still within law firms. So maybe just walk us through that as a primer, because I think it's really fundamental, especially to email, because email has drip campaigns, email has segmentation, the email can reach people at different parts of those stages. So I think it's really core and fundamental. Do you want to say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So, if we're looking at where people are in that buying cycle, whether it's the awareness, knowledge, consideration, purchase, loyalty, at the very beginning, they don't actually know who you are. So a lot of the email content has to be explaining who you are and what you can provide them, and I guess getting them to a situation where they realise that they need that expertise. So the messaging and the stories will be quite different. And a way of doing that is with stories of how you've helped other clients in similar situations. Go through that, and they're going to be looking at different things, whether they're at that, well, they know what you do, but you want to move them to consideration. So what's important to them in that, is it demonstrating expertise, or is it just a commodity market where it's price focused? Those kinds of things. But we get some great research in Australia as to what is most important to our buyers at different stages of that cycle, and then we can sort of look at that. So yes, expertise is, or understanding the business. So is it more, rather than just that technical expertise of that one case, is it more of an industry? How is AI going to impact the retail industry? How is AI going to impact pharmaceuticals? And so broaden it so you can demonstrate you understand their industry, you understand their environment. And so moving along for that. And then obviously at the other end, where you've got loyalty and referral, it's really, the story is showing them that they've made a good choice, and it's just reinforcing that they've made a good choice to be with you.
Yes.
Yeah. How you tell that story.
Totally. So I love this idea, because let's take to make this concrete, let's take the AI in retail example. That would be a really great awareness at the top of the funnel, early in the buying stage. It would meet the buyer where they're at, because they themselves, in a way, are trying to understand how AI is going to affect the retail industry. So if your client is a retail or manufacturing company, they themselves are thinking through this problem. Now, this is that second part of that question that I wanted to ask you, which is, but the lawyer, a lawyer comes in and says, I want to write about the AI legal the legal implications for AI, and whether or not AI can be held accountable for suits on something. The point, I think the point's being made here, but what's really happening is that the lawyer is writing something for a very, very discrete case, almost like some edge case of the law that hasn't even been created yet, while your client is literally just trying to understand what are the implications on a broad system. And so you're missing this opportunity because, and another way of saying this, you're speaking past them, or you're not speaking at the stage where they're at. Is this kind of a good example about missing the mark, and why some of this doesn't land as much as you would hope?
Yeah, and I think it's also who your audience is there. If it's a general counsel and that they are looking at it, yes, the more technical aspects of that may work. But if you're wanting to attract different aspects of the C-suite, it's going to be a much broader, what is the impact of this to the industry and my client? If you're speaking to a CFO, it might be, how can this improve your expenses and your costs and those kinds of things. If you're speaking to the CMO, it might be more about how does AI go into impact the client experience positively, and what are the what's the outcome on the inside of the organisation as well. So I think it's also making sure that the message is targeted to that audience. But yes, I think a much broader, in general, demonstrating that you are understanding their business and understanding their industry and the challenges that they've got, and helping them, giving them the information and the really important thing. And I work with a lot of scientists and engineers, and this is really tricky, but really making it easy to understand. So, there is research out there that says even if you are speaking to a technical audience, they're going to take more in if it is in plain English. So making sure that you are speaking to them and you're using information so they can feel confident, you've made them feel confident, that's very favourable on you.
Totally. I love that. Okay, so the nuance there that I got from this was, you got to think about buyer's journey, and then you also got to think about persona within the buyer's journey, because really the CFO at the early stage of a buyer's journey is not going to be like the general counsel at the late stage of a buyer journey. But today, basically the C-suite is buying most services, especially large ticket services like legal today. So winning that entire C-suite is really important. Okay, so we're gonna move forward a little bit. The next is going to be challenges to a good email experience. We sort of went into it already a little bit. I think a lot of it is not understanding the buyer's journey. You talked a little bit about, getting content to fit the right stage. What else do you think about whenever you think about challenges to a good email experience as a function of good client experience?
I think I think for a BD or marketing team, often in professional services, often the challenges can be internal, as we spoke about, is getting the right content out there and getting it in a timely fashion as well, because obviously there's internal constraints with client work and whatever. So I think the other challenges is making sure it's read. There's a lot of, it takes a lot of time for someone to write something that's an article. So making sure that, how do we make that time worthwhile? How do we get ROI on that time? And to do that, we need to make sure that, it's going to the right people, and it's got the right heading. It's it's going in time, things like that. And one of the difficult things I think these days is because everything is global and people aren't necessarily just receiving it on their computer at their desk while they're eating their lunch. It's, when do we send it out as well? Are people reading it, while they're catching the train home? Are they reading it, on their phones? So, and that's changing as well, the amount of detail that we need to go into. And again, I think the challenge is internally. They want to write, they have all this knowledge and they want to get that knowledge out. But if people are reading it on the train on the way home, it's got to be sharp. It's got to be short. They can always go and find more information, but it's getting their attention in that short window that you have.
Yeah, totally. Is there any technical side? So that's like kind of, those are strategic says, and I would agree. Basically, I mean, a lot of content lives or dies on whether or not it can be personalized, relevant, and delivered in the right manner at the right time. So if that wasn't hard enough to do, so is there any technical challenges that sort of you feel comes along with good email experience?
Yeah, I think it's making sure that the technical challenge is getting it to the right person. How are you? Totally. How are you looking at it? If you're looking at it through an Excel spreadsheet versus a system like Nexl, how up to date is that spreadsheet, and how targeted can you actually be? Whereas with making sure that you've got a system such as Nexl, you are able to segment and segment on a lot of different things. So we no longer we used to have a lot more sort of static lists, but now we've really reduced those and really only have a master list. And then each time we're looking at the content and we're going, who is this targeted to? Who's going to read it? How can we get those people? And then we can segment it in however we want, whether that is on job title and or industry, types of organisation, location, those kinds of things. So I think that making sure you've got the right technology in place is really important. And
Yeah.
it's only one part of the stack too. You have to have all the other pieces in place as well for it to be really smooth. And I think then you've got challenges of change and things like that, which are constant. So yeah.
Which are constant. Yes, exactly. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it, but certainly. Okay, well, I think that actually leads to the last part. We're coming in at about half past here, so we're going to kind of go into the last part here, and really we're going to kind of walk through a use case about how you rethought your email experience and some of the particular things that Nexl was able to help you accomplish. So can you set the tone for us? Maybe go back to a little bit. What were you thinking about that you wanted to what particular use case were you looking for, and what are some of the challenges that you were looking for? And then walk through kind of that campaign, maybe some of the results of that campaign, and yeah, any of the learnings that you really that you walk through there.
Yeah, sure. So yes, if we take a real step back, and when we were first looking at Nexl, and what was the problem that we were trying to solve? And as I mentioned, it was a client experience one. It was both internally and externally. We had to really remove the negative interactions we were having with sort of internal stakeholders as well. Like before, we were saying, okay, we're having an event. Here's a list of the people we invited last time. And it was looking quite poorly on the BD team because that was out of date. How did we know that was out of date? We had no way of knowing that this client had moved, that client was no longer there. They've now got this target, so we need to add those people on. We didn't have that intel. And it was frustrating for our key senior stakeholders. They had to review it every time. It was taking time out of their day. And also, it was really not adding to the credibility of the BD team. So that was one of the really important things, whether that's a sort of an email campaign or it's an event, email, you're using your email system for events. And then, so, and I guess also from an external experience, it was delayed, it was taking a long time, they weren't getting information in a timely manner. So, and they were getting the wrong information as well. And, we would get a lot of unsubscribes. So, I guess it goes back down to any effort in doing whatever it is you're doing. We were losing ROI on that, whether it was taking the time to write an article, taking the time to organising an event and all of that. We were really losing ROI in, the resources that we were having. It was costing a lot more, but also the potential of getting the right targets. So
totally right.
Yeah. So what we've done is we've implemented Nexl. I think that's one of the reasons that we implemented Nexl, along with others, and being able to email out of that and segment that database has been really quite life-changing. Having that information up to date, having it easy for the stakeholders to update should they need to, so it's not being another BD admin burden either, and really setting them up. So we've actually used, when we do this, we're using the project component in Nexl as well. Right. So by using the project component, when we do have a campaign that is using email, we can actually track the opportunities that are coming out of that. We can assign tasks to the stakeholders. We're getting them engaged at the beginning. They are helping create the marketing lists in their, in the project. They're helping create those marketing lists of who that's to go to. And so that has become a really positive experience internally. It has helped us be really parts of that business and having strategic conversations rather than admin conversations. But having those conversations, and then that all improves the client experience because we've got that, that relationship with the stakeholders, we can ask the questions and we can say, we can look at this, but I don't think that that's the right tone. You know, we need to change the tone of that or whatever. And that's coming through
Correct.
from a much more credible place than it was previously. So we can actually help change the content and change
Yes.
that part of the client experience. We also use a lot of other data as well. So we can see, you know, we can track whether it's, you know, what's happening on LinkedIn, what's happening on our website, Lexology, what articles are of interest. So we can actually, we're having those conversations earlier. Nexl has allowed us to do that. It's allowed us to have those be part of the conversation earlier and then direct it. So we've been able to go with that data and say, okay, this is what's happening. You know, you want to write an article or you want to have this event, this seminar. These are some topics that have been discussed. This is what our competitors are talking about. This is what they're not talking about, those kinds of things. And then we can have that email campaign that, yeah, and then it's very targeted. Okay, who are we targeting to? And we've really done that to make sure that it really is targeted to those people. And we do have one example that was late last year when one of our first really well targeted ones, and it just went really well. If you wanted me to talk through that, Ben.
Absolutely. So I'll ask you to go through the stats here, but let me summarize, because I mean, first of all, I am so excited whenever you get excited about how Nexl has helped you, and really, truthfully, it's incredible. You know, on just the technical aspect with, I heard really three things that had really been solved. The first was cleaner lists, more engaged lists. That then allowed you to do two things: segment those audiences so that they could, so that you could invite them to the right event or engage them at the right part of their journey. And then the last was it allowed the BD team to have much more strategic discussions, and really empowered the business development team specifically to go and do things like, hey, this might not be the right article at this point in time based on where they're at, or hey, this might not be the right tone based on X, Y, and Z, or hey, the data says 1, 2, and 3, let's try something else. That's what I sort of really heard. And then, you know, the ability to sort of bring in lawyers and have them participate and actually help, that also helps understaffed or under-resourced, which everybody is always, you know, BD teams really do more with less. So those are the couple of the highlights that I heard, and that's kind of the problems that I heard solving. And again, net, this is about client experience, right? Because it's not for the internal lawyers. It's really so that the clients have a better email experience, a function of a better client service experience, correct?
Yeah, and as a result of that, we are then engaged in those conversations afterwards about, okay, these are the clients that have read this. You know, how can we help you with the cross-sell opportunity? These are some opportunities that have come out of this. When was the last time you went and spoke to this client or had a coffee with this client and just spoke about what's happening in their world? So, you know, we can see that they've read this one and this one. You know, they're about two different topics, but they're about the same topic. They're really engaged in that. So that has really helped, not just that part of it, but then going on as well and continuing. And then, and then it's even easier the next time we come around, because we go, okay, this is the way we're going to do it. And they're like, yep, it worked last time. We're happy to do that again with you. And, you know, it's our experience as well, right? It makes our job so much more enjoyable, as well as, you know, all those other things, having the client getting relevant information, you know, being able to have a nice conversation, you know, with the lawyers or attorneys as well. So it really does. One small piece of the puzzle that some people might think is insignificant, but, you know, putting everything together, it has such a great impact.
Yeah, totally. I loved how you summarized that, which is, you know, it's a better experience for the BD, it's a better experience for the lawyers, and it's a better experience for the clients as well. So that's really the three stakeholders in this, let's call it relationship building trifecta, or thruple, as everybody's calling it now. Okay, so let's that's the qualitative part of this use case, and that was kind of the end result. Why don't we walk through some of the statistics and some of the quantitative side of it, and how, you know, this redesign experience, what was the net of it?
Yeah, so we had an example last year where one of our attorneys wanted to write on a topic that we thought was actually quite relevant, and we loved the idea because it actually wasn't a technical case, just a rehash, but it was actually targeted towards academics. In our world of our clients, a lot of our clients are academics. It was really, really important that we do target them and explain. And it was an issue for them, so it was an industry issue. It's actually about their IP, and if they write articles prior to trying to get a patent, can they actually do it because is the information already out there? So It was all about writing articles as something that impacted them, but it didn't actually impact our work. But it was a really useful article, written really well. Topic was fantastic. And then using Nexl, for the first time, we were really able to easily get out all of our contacts that were at universities, were at research organisations. So very, very targeted. We did a couple of tests. We did checks that our big clients in those areas were listed and everything. And we sent that out. Now, that list was a lot smaller than the list that we had used previously. The list we used previously would have been very, very generic. We would have hit a lot of people that aren't in that. They may be a corporate client, so they're not in that academic research part. It wouldn't have been relevant. Chances are we would have got a few unsubscribes. We get unsubscribes there. They then don't get other information that we want to send to them due to all the legal issues there. And so it was a much smaller list. And I don't have the numbers for the list, but I think it was probably about 50% the size of a list that we would normally send that to. The article was actually read, I'm just reading the stats here off my screen, it was read 5 times more than any other article we'd sent last year. So even though the list was smaller, it had been read more than 5 times more. The open rate was 5 times higher than any other emailed article, and the click-through rate was 20% higher than anything else that year too. Yeah. So that was a real story of success, and it really demonstrated how important it is to have good content, have targeted content, have content that is relevant to our clients and not just on that technical aspect, and then really make sure, and write an article that is very focused on one, and so you can segment it and provide a lot of value. So
totally. And to summarize and bring this back to the initial discussion we had about client experience, the real point of this is to bring them down and continue them on this buying journey or this loyalty journey on the other side. So what ended up happening, practically speaking, either somebody who was a little higher in the buyer's journey got something that was very relevant to that target, something that was maybe a little lower, or even a current client, again, got something very targeted. So what they're inevitably having this experience is nothing but incredibly relevant content that sort of moves them through this journey. And again, it's a combination of good content, having a strategy, and then finally being able to execute it with good segmentation and putting that all together. So I just want to applaud you for masterminding all of that and putting it all together and working with your team. But it's simple, but definitely not easy. Never easy. But that's fantastic.
Because sometimes we can't control all of those parts either. As a BD team, there will be a very passionate lawyer that wants to see something through. But I'm one for always saying that, let's look at what we can control and let's look at how we can improve this experience. And by using Nexl and segmenting that way and making sure that our introductions are correct and those things, we can we can make it a successful client journey as well, and we can feel good about what we've done as well.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. I've taken more than enough of Jenny's time. She's been very gracious to lend us. I know that she has lots to do. Jenny, as we sort of come out, any final words about, email, good learnings that you've taken away? I think we've given us everything that you need, or anything about client experience, any nuggets of wisdom that you want to leave anybody with as we head out?
I think we've kind of wrapped it up, but probably just that targeting and segmenting,
yes,
is really important, and looking at it from the client perspective.
Yes.
And there will be instances where you might, hopefully you've got some clients that are really close, sort of trusted clients. You can actually even contact them and say, thinking of this, would this be relevant to you? And,
totally.
taking their information as well. So listen to the clients, look at it from the client perspective. I think it's
Absolutely.
one of the biggest challenges, but one of the most rewarding parts of our role.
Exactly. And just to combine that, if a client has a great experience, they will eventually become a client partner, and you can go to them and ask them that kind of like questions, right? You can have a really good experience, and the best marketing in the world comes from the clients, right? From either the client's testimonials or the client's perspective. We're just a conduit through which things move through, the marketers and the BD heads of us. That's insider baseball. The greatest marketing and BDs are the ones that are come up with the clients, because they know better than anybody else. In a way, they know the experience that they want. But the marketing and BD are there to execute it and operationalize it. Well, yeah, I think that's it. We're going to go ahead and wrap up. Jenny Williamson, the head of business development at FB Rice. It was a pleasure to sit down with you for another One Firm webinar. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody who joined us or watching this on the recording. We had a really big turnout for this. I think like 100-something people registered, but it was really nice. Emma, I just want to see if there was any questions before we wrap up and let Jenny, but I don't think there was. So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Just really quick, Emma, any questions? Anything that we need? No,
all good.
Answered it all?
Yes.
Great. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much again, and thank you to Jenny. And we will be back again with another One Firm webinar in about 2 weeks. Take care, everybody. And Jenny, have a good morning and a good afternoon. Hopefully lunch is good, and hopefully the weather is great in Sydney, Australia. I'm sure it's going to be.
Fantastic. Okay. Thanks very much, Ben. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye, everybody.